Um, I joined Highline last February, believe it or not, it's almost been a year. And prior to that, I was actually with the state board support team when First Link went live, and then I moved over to the project team. So I've kind of seen a lot of different things in here. So I was asked if I could help you guys out and answer questions for you guys in terms of, and do kind of a demonstration of the Advisor Center. So don't hesitate to chat in your questions. People can unmute and ask questions too, but let us know what kind of questions you have as I go through things. I'll try to cover as much as I can in the time that we have. So let me.
Hey, Jill, this is
Yeah.
Carrie Powell from Centralia, and we're so appreciative of your time and grateful that you're doing this for us. And I just wanted to mention that I think we have several people on the call from our college that are kind of just very peripherally, they've known that this has been coming for years, but they don't have a lot of in-depth knowledge. So, just so keep in mind that you may see things in the chat like, what does that mean? Or, what is that word about? And because I just think
Absolutely.
there's a lot to assimilate, but thank you so much.
No problem.
And I'll try to answer anything I can as I see it. And Carrie and other PMs, if we see things that are just general project things that we can answer, let's pitch in for that, because it's so hard to present and keep an eye on chat, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me know if you see questions I haven't hit.
Feel free.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think it sounds like this is kind of a preliminary introduction, and it will help us understand more about the kinds of questions that our faculty and our advisors will be asking us as we get closer to going live with this system. So looking forward to hearing any questions that come up from faculty and staff, and we will monitor that chat and also keep track of it and try to get responses back to the group as well. So thank you.
Okay, everyone, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm hearing less doorbells where people are jumping in, so I'm hoping that means we won't get a lot of that. Everyone see my screen okay? I'm gonna make sure I have a chat open off to the side so I don't. Oh, maybe I'll have the chat open. Ah, and then I hit the wrong button. Sorry. Just want to make sure I have something open to the side so I don't have to go hunting for my chat every 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's worth a minute to set up, right?
Okay. So for today's demonstration, I'm going to be using our user acceptance testing environment that we've all been, for those of you on your campuses that have been testing, that's what I'm using for this demonstration. So I'm going to take it all the way from starting to log in. So after you guys have activated your accounts, you'll learn all about that at probably very, very soon. You will use your new ctcLink ID number and your password. I have to remember what I said has this one. So what you will get to typically, it depends a lot on if you've been affiliated with other colleges. I still have some old stuff in my account because of the fact I was on the project team and a part of the support team for a while. So the tiles you'll see will be based on the colleges you're affiliated with. So some of you that may be faculty advisors may see more than one tile here. So what you want to make sure is when you're dealing with students, you select the tile for the college that the student is attending. That's important for some features, and I'll point those out as we get in. This doesn't set a lot, but what it sets is when you go to view the student data, if you want to see the correct account information. So just make sure that if you switch between colleges, if you just happen to be one of those faculty that do work with multiple colleges, you sometimes have to come back and log back in and select the correct tile. Once you select your tile, it will get to what's called the gateway page or the portal page. This is where you can access different pieces of the system. For today's demonstration, we are going to be going through what's called the advisor homepage or advisor center. And there's a quick link to that one right here on the homepage. To get to Campus Solutions overall, a lot of times you just go up to the CS link up at the top right-hand side. But I'm going to go and click on advisor homepage. So it's going to take me right into that. So the advisor homepage is going to open up here, and you're going to have 3 tiles. The one you're going to probably use the most is the one that's called Advisor Center, but I will also go through the others. The Advisor Center one is going to get you the most of your features. The first one is the My Advisees, and you can go into that, but I'll show you. Advisor Center actually has I think, a better view of that, but that's a personal opinion. But it does give you a list of your advisees that you can take a look at if you want to. Again, I have some sample data in here to show you what that kind of looks like, but I'm going to show you that from a different aspect as well. For those of you that have been testing in UAT, I have some exciting news. Advising Notes is working as of this morning. I just got alert from the project team. So this My Advising Notes tile is working again. So this is, I will show you kind of some different ways to add notes in the system about your students, but the My Advising Notes tile will take you right into your advising notes, anything that you've been affiliated with for advising. So when I click on that, so like I said, this is very exciting because this wasn't working until this morning. When you click on that, you will see a list of all the different advising notes that you are connected to. There are these filter features off to the left-hand side where you can look for things that you might have action items, and I'll get more detailed into how to create a new note and all that kind of stuff. But the tile for this is really just focused around those notes you've attached to students. So we'll create a few more notes, and then later on I'll come back in to this tile and show you how that looks as we add some additional notes. Good question. Are the notes private from the student or visible to all? That is based on security, and we've had a few conversations about security around advising notes. There are security roles attached to different categories, and so if you have the security role that's attached to that category, you would see the advising notes for that category. So there's some conversations about how to make certain categories more secure than and things like that, and whether or not you can see notes between colleges. They're working on some security features around this. There also is the opportunity to whether or not you want an advising note to be viewed by students. So I'll show you some of that as we get into creating an advising note in just a minute. I'm going to come back out to this homepage, and I'm going to go into Advisor Center, which is probably, like I said, where you're going to end up most of the time. So this is the tile I usually go into 99% of the time. So when you go into Advisor Center, the first thing you see, that My Advisees list, you saw on that tile had that, but I actually like the view of this one better. It has the same functionality, but I do like this one better because of the fact that I then have my other tabs and I have other data pieces that I can click on. So on this My Advisees, a couple things you might notice right off the bat. Why do these two, why are they not blue hyperlink text? And why do they not have that notify button in front of them? The reason for that is the student doesn't have an email address on file. So if I click on any one of these students, it actually opens up your email system so I can send them an email using the email, their preferred email. The other piece of that is this notify button allows me to send a mass message to multiple students at once. So if I want to send a message to these 3 students, I can click on notify and click this notify selected advisees. It pops all of their email addresses into this blind carbon copy so they don't see each other's email addresses. You can change this subject. You can CC other people, and then you can type a message and send a message to all your advisees at once. This is a test system. These emails don't go anywhere, so I can just do that. So it sends a quick message out into to the advisees you selected. That's a pretty fun, I like that feature. Unfortunately, I do get asked this question a lot. Does that message I just sent live anywhere in PeopleSoft? And the answer, unfortunately, is no. So I do recommend when you do that, and like I said, you could do it for multiple students or you can pick and choose. I do recommend copying your, if you, copying your own email address so that you have a stored copy of what messages you've sent through Notify. There are other ways in PeopleSoft to send messages that retain on the student's record, but not through the notification feature.
Jill?
Yeah.
On the from column, will it, when we're live in the system, will that automatically have your email address in it?
It has your email address, but it doesn't save a copy in your sent folder.
Okay. And then the two, what goes in the to box then? I guess, I'm sorry.
I think it actually is copying to you on the to, and I'm sorry, there's a truck outside and my dog's barking.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I haven't played with that enough to double check that. Hold on, guys. I'm going to mute 1 second while my milkman is here delivering milk and my dog's going crazy.
So if that does automatically default to putting your email address in the to as the sender, then you wouldn't have to actually take that extra step. So that would be nice. But with this, test setup, we can't really see how that functions till we get there. So.
And Jill, this is Carrie. I'm just guessing that your to is going to be your recipient, your student email, right? I mean, it's going to be you're sending to sample student.
It actually takes all of the students' email addresses and puts them in this BCC. It used to actually put them all in the to, and that's actually an enhancement the project team made because we didn't want people to send out mass emails where you could see everybody's email address.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so when you notify, it's actually sending an email to all of them. It's not just putting a notification.
It's actually sending an email address to them. Oops, someone is drawing on the screen. Hold on.
And then we do have a question about, can you select all advisees and filter for credit amounts? For example, all students under 30 credits.
So hold on 1 second. Pat, can the other people see that? Someone is drawing on the screen. Not sure how to stop that.
I think that was you. It moved when you moved the cursor.
Oh, that's weird. I'm gonna try undo. Oh, very strange. Sorry about that. Okay, someone. So let me answer those questions. So yes, you can click if you hit notify all advisees. It'll send a message to everybody. It'll tell you, however, that, for example, I'm missing the email addresses for a couple of my students. So the other one is, can you filter for students that are different credit numbers? No, there's nothing in this notification feature that would allow that. That would have to be done through a different, either PeopleSoft 3C's communication or message center to send a message to specific populations that you'd be able to pull by a query. And then someone also asked privately, can you attach files? Not in the notification feature. So I will go into advising notes, and you can attach files there, and you can make it so students can see those there. Question about text messages. Hold on 1 second. No, there is no text messaging capability right now being used through PeopleSoft. So it is just through email. Okay. Other questions on notification before I go into some of this other stuff? Okay. So the next thing I'm going to show you guys, well, and you could, if you did email an individual student, let me point that out, is that if I click on the student, like I said, that your email client will open, and you can attach something that way, because then you're directly emailing them from your email client. But you wouldn't be able to do a mass to all your students doing that, unfortunately. Okay, so I'm going to go into, so you'll see there's this link for each of the students that's view student details. So I'm going to go into one of these to show you what that looks like. And what you're going to notice is it actually takes me to the next down in my left-hand menu. So this is actually Student Center that I'm in. So just to let you know where we're at on the left-hand menu. If I wanted to get back to that advisee list, I can navigate that to that from my left-hand menu. And it's going to copy whoever I last looked at here. But if I did want to change between my advisees, I can actually do that at the top of the page. There's a drop down where I can choose which advisee to look at. And I'll show you how that looks. Can an advisee have more than one advisor in the system? Absolutely, they can. So we can actually assign multiple advisors. Okay. So on this advisee student center, let me explain this page to you guys because it has an interesting spin on it. So the student center as it stands actually is the old PeopleSoft 9.0 prior to the upgrade that happened when Clark College went live. This is what the student self-service page looked at. And this was the advisor view of that page. And so what you see here is data that students would see when they go into self-service. Now, since the upgrade, it totally does not look like what students see. But however, it does give you the data students see. So the students will see things like they have a message center message that they haven't read. They will see things like their enrollment dates. The view of it is very different, but data-wise, it gives you guys a kind of a view into the elements the student will see when they log in. So one thing you'll notice here, so I'm going to switch between a couple of students so you can see what that looks like for different students because the data will change. So on this student, all of a sudden I see this schedule pop up. So what that tells me is, so this student, this test student is registered in winter quarter, where that first student I was looking at was not registered in winter quarter. So that gives you kind of an idea of what you're looking at. You will see, like I said, message center messages, and I'll get into that in a second. But when you're navigating on this page, you're kind of navigating into data that as the student would see it. So that's important for a couple of different elements. One, obviously that enrollment piece. You will see what the student sees for like their enrollment appointment. So if they've got an enrollment appointment assigned, you'll see that. Now let me show you what it looks like if they don't have an enrollment appointment assigned. Instead of seeing that specific appointment, you will see this link which goes to what's called the academic calendar in PeopleSoft to give you general enrollment dates or term dates, basically. The difference being when I have an appointment, I can actually see the specific details of my appointment. And if the student is attached to multiple colleges, they can actually look at that as well. So I can see this is my appointment time and how many credits I'm allowed to enroll in. So like I said, this is where, like I said, the student gets to see a lot of that data. Not sure why the heading isn't populating up at the top here, but it should say hold. So this at the top on the right-hand side is the holds. So this is a student's service indicators is what they call them in PeopleSoft. And you can go in and see the details of that. And so this is the message the student is get, hey, you know, this is what's going on and why you can't enroll. But you guys get to see that too, which was really cool. I'm going to kind of go down the right-hand side and I'm going to come back to the middle. To-do list. So there's a cool feature in PeopleSoft called checklists where we can actually assign checklists to students, and it appears to a student as a to-do list. I'm going to go to a student that has one. And so if a student has one, they'll have all the items from their to-do list listed there. And so they can click more and they'll see all the items that have been assigned to them. And if they click on them, they can actually get in and get more information for each of the items. So that's the to-do list. Milestones in PeopleSoft are things typically used for non-course program requirements. In Highline's case, we've set up a lot of ours to do for placement score levels, as opposed to doing that in our test results. So ours are around placement levels. So if I go into details here, I can see that my student has been placed in English 101. Can you show us how a student gets an appointment? That is a feature that's done by the Enrollment Services Office. They will assign appointments. So that process is based on your business process at your college and how those get assigned. So that's where the milestones are. This is where you see the advisors. I think I have one student in here that I assigned as 2. Let me look if I can find it. Not that one. Maybe not. I thought I had added one that had two advisors assigned. Or I'll find it. Oh, there it is. So in this case, I have 2 advisors assigned. Someone had asked about that. If I hit details, I get both advisor names, and I can, if they click on your name, they get they can pop up an email to send you an email. So that's how they see who's assigned to them. Unfortunately, it doesn't give them any more details other than the names. But that's the right-hand side. So I'm going to start kind of going through some different stuff on this main page here. So this academic section is, like I said, the student's view of different data elements that they're interacting with. So they can go and view their class schedule. The weekly schedule does populate here, but they can go in and view a full class schedule. So if they have classes that don't meet every week, they can view all that. They can get into their shopping cart. Like I said, that looks a lot different for students now than this, unfortunately. Now this one's important for you guys as advisors because it's my planner. So the student has a planner tool where they can put courses into specific terms and plan out what they want to take. I wasn't able to get everything set up to show you what that looks like when it's filled, but you guys will be able to go in and see what the student has put in their planner, and you can work with students to fill out their planner and things like that. That is a student-facing function, so the student will do that, and you might want to work with them to do that piece. There's some other features in this. Okay, can we edit or create a plan for a student? Unfortunately, no. The planner is only student-facing at this time. So unfortunately, no, the advisors can't go in and add classes to the student's planner. So in this drop-down, you'll see a lot of other things the student will have access to. The academic requirements are like your degree audits. Unfortunately, those were not built in this environment, so I can't really show you how that looks. The students will see the advising notes that you put out there for them. So if you go into this view of advising notes, it's only the ones the student can see. The student can see things like their course history, their grades. One of the ones that you guys probably will use a lot is if you want to see an unofficial transcript. So I can come in here and pull an unofficial transcript on a student. Right now, this student doesn't have any transcripted classes, but you can see how that will look. Now, I like to point out on this unofficial transcript piece, because a lot of times people will select this and they select this big button at the bottom that says view all requested reports. That is a way to see what transcripts have been run in the past. It's not pulling a fresh transcript. So you can actually go in and see, oh, I pulled a transcript last week and I can go view that version of it. But if something's changed on it, you always want to typically click on this view report button on the right-hand side when you pull a transcript, because that's going to pull a fresh transcript from the system as of now, where this button at the bottom is going to show you previously requested transcripts. Hope that helps a little. So those are the types of things you can go in there, and I'm going to show you some other views of things that you guys see that the student doesn't see necessarily. Under this winter schedule, like I said, this is showing you the weekly schedule for the student. Now, we are working on, they have a new student alerts process. And so this is one way as an advisor you can submit an alert. Faculty will have the student alerts on their class rosters in their faculty center, but advisors can actually submit an alert, but they have to do it here. So you have to, the student has to be enrolled and the alert's specific to the class. So you can click on this little link that says submit alert. And based on what your college configured, you will see different types of alert codes, and there'll be different processes on the back end in terms of how you guys handle those alerts and who follows up on them and all of that. These are the ones that Highline specifically did. And you can put in comments. The notes to the responder are notes to whoever's going to be following up with this. And if you want your comments here, not the comments to the responder, but your comments here, when you submit an alert, a notification goes to the student. And if you want your comments here included in that, you can click that box. And so it's going to connect it to the specific term and the class number. And so I submit that alert, and hopefully we're all this is somewhat new functionality that we're all testing for the first time. They just got it launched. So check in with your project manager or your group that's going to be handling this in terms of the business process for handling the responses to that. Someone just asked, how are instructors make alerts or just advisors? So like I said, the advisors have access to submit alerts here on the Student Center tab of Advising Center. Faculty have access to submit an alert through their Faculty Center, their faculty homepage. On their class roster, there will be a button for each student to submit an alert. Let's see here. Is it possible to have a separate training for utilizing this service for transitional ed students? That's not up to me. This is more for just the advisors right now. There are other trainings available for other groups. Okay, down at the bottom, you're going to see contact information for the student, address, phone number, email. A lot of our students don't have emergency contact information yet, but if they had it in the system, you can go in and see that as well. And like I said, the information will change a bit. I'm going to go back to this student because the one thing I didn't show you guys is Message Center. So the Message Center is a tool that allows us to send a message to the student's self-service account. And then what it does is it sends a notification to the student's email, hey, you have a new Message Center message. I compare it a lot to, those notifications you get from your bank, log into your secure account to view your message. It kind of works the same way. So we send a Message Center message, it goes here where they can go and read it. And it does have the ability, depending on your college and what they want to do, to actually have what's called a threaded conversation. So the student you can actually do replies, but you have to make, based on your college's decision about who's going to manage replies and all that kind of stuff. So you can see this is my test message. It just says, welcome to Highline College. And this one I did enable replies. And so I am going to go ahead and put that in there. And you can kind of see how that goes. Should send. And the student can archive the message and things like that. As they get new messages in, they can work on that. And the student, if the student is affiliated with multiple colleges, they can actually see messages from multiple colleges here. So you may have that as well. My system seems to be frozen for a second, so I'm hoping you guys all still hear me and all that. try this again. That reply is not working quite well, but as I said, this is a test environment. I may have to go play with that a little bit and see what's going on with that. Not sure why that's freezing. Now, even though I went in and read it as an advisor, as I was telling you guys before, this view here is the student's view. And so this will show as unread until the student reads the message. So that's kind of an important distinction. So even though you've read it, doesn't mean the student has read it. So that will go away once the student reads it. The other kind of nice feature in here is it shows unread for any messages the student has not read. So that's kind of important because we can be sending communications to students, and it's a nice way of being able to identify if students actually open that message or not. Doesn't mean they actually read it, just means they opened it. Which is actually, now that I think about it, that's why I can't put a reply, because the student's supposed to put a reply. Wasn't thinking. Okay, and then it keeps freezing on that page. Okay, so that's the main student center page. And like I said, that's the student's view. So I'm going to go through some of these other tabs here on the left-hand menu. The general information tab is going to give you some of that stuff you just saw on the student center, but kind of a staff view of it. So you see all these buttons like edit service indicator, review checklist summary. A lot of that has to do with your access to the backend PeopleSoft page. So you won't see these buttons for like editing a service indicator if you don't have access to assign and edit service indicators. You'll still see this here. You'll see the service indicators that have been assigned or the holds that have been assigned, but you wouldn't have the button. So just to be aware of what you may see that's a little different. Again, if I have full access to that service indicator, I can actually go in and make edits to it here, but I don't on this one.
So Jill, I was distracted for a minute, so I wasn't paying attention. But Beth asked a question in chat about seeing students that are not assigned to you and as an advisor, if you could see all students or just your own. And then a follow-up to that, which just clued me in that maybe we hadn't answered that. How would you see those students not assigned to you?
So if you want to see a student that's not assigned to you, if you go to my advisees list, I can click on this view data for other students, and I can look up a student that isn't assigned to me. So you can see that's not, they don't populate up in my advisee list at the top, but I can go still look up them up and see them. And then I can still change back to one of my advisees. So that's how you go view other students. How do you, okay. Does that make sense? Any other questions on that one? So it's just this view data for other students link.
Jill, this is Beth.
Yeah.
Can you also, if a student isn't assigned to you, can you see the notes that an advisor
Yes.
has put on them, and can you add notes?
Yes.
Like,
so
okay.
When I go back to advising notes after we add a couple, I will show you how to do that.
Okay, so you don't necessarily have to have a student in your caseload or whatever in order to see their information or add a note to them, or you can kind of ad hoc. Awesome. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna go back over to this general, and I'm gonna switch to the student I was looking at, or a student I have some stuff assigned to. So you can see this student didn't have any service indicators, but this one did. So if the student doesn't have anything, it'll just say no checklist, no service indicators, things like that. So that was the service indicator. I'm going to go to the student that has a checklist, and so you can see what that looks like. So when there's a checklist assigned, you can go in, and if you click on this, you can actually see all the items attached to it. Again, the buttons only show up if you have security to the pages. The caseload of students. Okay, so the question was, those that have a caseload of students, can you add them and create a saved list of all the students you have? Your My Advisees list is the students that are assigned to you. Who assigns advisors to advisees is a business process question that needs to be answered at your college. But I mean, it's a pretty easy process to add people to you, but there's not a feature inside Advising Center to go assign a student to you. That's done in another page in PeopleSoft. Student groups. So what we think of in legacy terms as unusual action codes kind of got split into two groups. One is the service indicators, which are the holds, things that prevent you from doing something in the system. Enrolling in classes, preventing students from dropping a class, things like that. Student groups are more informational. So in this case, I have a student that's assigned to the Running Start student group. It's a way of identifying student populations. It's a way of identifying waivers that are attached to students. Sometimes the waivers get triggered based on student groups. So you'll see different student groups that may be assigned to students here. Again, the edit button is only for people that have page access to go actually adjust those codes. And then personal data. So you'll see date of birth, sex, social security number only if you have access to view social security numbers. If not, it does this XXX, or masking. Sometimes you only see the last 4 digits depending on the security you've been granted. Students in PeopleSoft can have multiple name types. So you may have primary name, you may have a preferred name. Do I have a student? I may have a student with a preferred. Let's see what I've got. Yeah, that wasn't the one I added. So you may have different address types. So students can have multiple. So in Legacy, we could only have one address, you know, one name, things like that. In PeopleSoft, we can actually have a home address and a foreign address and a legal address and all that kind of stuff. So you may see, that's why you see this type here. And so you might see multiple rows based on the different types they have, and you'll see what the student has identified as their preferred. So there'll be a checkbox in front of preferred. The student has access in self-service to indicate which of their addresses, phone numbers, emails are their preferred. And we can query off of that and all that kind of stuff when we send communications. So that's the general tab, gives you some base information. I'm going to go down to this advisee transfer credit. So this is where you're going to see whether the student has been awarded transfer credit at your college. So you'll be able to see where the credit's awarded, and I believe as long as you have view access, you'll see this. You can go into the details and see this student transferred in from Highline. Well, in this case, it's just Highline. And it was, they transferred in Humanities 100 and we gave them credit for Humanities 110. And you can scroll through those. And so a lot of times, by the way, when you see these things in PeopleSoft, you'll often have to see things where you have to scroll or hit view all to see all. The student also was awarded test credit. So if I click on that, I can see what they were awarded test credit for. The student took an AP Bio test and they were awarded biology credit for it. I also did an example of prior learning credit. Prior learning credit comes in to PeopleSoft as it's done through other credits. So we actually bring in that information. This was just an example I threw in there, but we can award PLA credit for a specific class or number of courses. So you'll see that posted there. So you'll see anything we've awarded from course transcripts, anything we've awarded from tests, and anything we've awarded from prior learning assessment. On the academics tab is where you're going to see the program information for the student. So I'm going to show you a couple different things here because this is kind of an important page in how you read it. Again, like the other pages, you won't get the buttons unless you have access to the page behind it. But what you can see here is this student has multiple codes here. And if I click on them, the information on the right-hand side is going to change. So right now, this is the one I'm on, this non-award seeking. If I click on professional technical, I will see that program. And so I can see this student has a non-award seeking. They have our professional technical criminal justice AAS program on their file. They have a general studies program on the file, not uncommon for our students to have several. But it also should tell you whether or not this is considered an active program, if the program has been discontinued, if it was completed, it will show that kind of information as well. So you can see that for program information. Now I'm going to go over to another student because I want to point out one thing that you may see in here. So this student, you will see, has a profile at Seattle as well as 2 different Seattle colleges, as well as Highline, as well as Tacoma. I can see that they have a file there, but I actually can't see the information. So if I click on the information for that, I can't see what programs they were studying there, but it does kind of give you a clue if the student has been affiliated with other colleges. But I can, of course, see the Highline data because that's the data I have access to. I'm gonna go back to this student. So that's the program information. So that's at the top. Now I'm going to scroll down to the bottom because I want to show you guys the term summary. So this works similarly. So at Highline College, this student has been term activated or eligible to enroll in these terms. Doesn't mean they enrolled. It doesn't mean they completed courses in all those terms, but it does mean that they've been active in those terms. So I can actually, if I click on any one of these terms, I can see the grade for the student, what classes they took. So this shows you all classes they've been enrolled in for that term. It'll show you their grades, whether or not their status was enrolled or dropped or waitlisted. So you can get that information right here. You also will get the cumulative stats for that term. And if you go to their most recent term, so in this case, the student's most recent is this winter, then it kind of gives me that cumulative stats as of this term. But you can see this student has enrollment, but no grades yet for this term. But you can also see the classes they've dropped from. This is one of my test students from user acceptance testing. So the students dropped a lot of things. If they were on the wait list, you'd see that as well. I'm gonna point out also that, again, on the term summary, you will see that they were involved in terms at other colleges, but you will not see that data. So the only data, so don't get confused that when you see that, you should still be able to see the information for your college. The question I see is, can you view all terms together in this view? Not in this view. This view is a term by term. If you want to view all the terms the student has been attached to, go back to their Student Center page and either run a transcript. So go here and run an unofficial transcript. Or if you want to hit course history, and this is again from the student's viewpoint, you can see all the courses in their course history. And it'll tell you what terms they took it in, whether it's in progress, whether there's a grade for it. So that's the academics menu. Let me know if you have any other questions about that. I'm going to go down to this one where it says search. So this gives you the ability to do a class search or a catalog search. Now, this search that you guys see is different than the search the student gets. So just be aware of that. So the class search is allowing you to search the class schedule. So if I want to go in and see what business classes are available for winter term, I can just select that. If I want to look up a specific instructor or mode of instruction or that type of thing, I can add additional filters here. So these are all filters you can add in. And then I hit search. Like I said, this looks very different for a student. So don't assume that this is what it looks like for a student. This will show you all, so we have 6 sections of, I just did the subject, so business. These are the different classes that are available for us for winter term. You can click on the class number. Ooh, there's a little error. I'll have to look at that later. To get more details. So you can see, okay, the status of the class is open. Currently, the enrollment capacity is 38, but there's only 2 students enrolled. You can see what the waitlist capacity for that class is, so you can get that information. The course description, all that kind of good stuff. Do cancel classes show on that first line? Typically, no. A canceled class is not going to show in there, but you can. One thing to note is if you want to see classes that are full because you're just searching classes for various reasons, you would want to uncheck this box, because this would, if I had a class that already hit capacity, so the class was closed, you would want to uncheck that box, so then you would get all the results back for that. And it's telling me, hey, narrow your search criteria because that's too broad. Sometimes it'll tell you that because it's saying, hey, we're going to pull back a lot of classes. Let me see if I add something else in. Now I'm going to show you a couple other things here. Some things that are important when you're searching for classes are things like OEE textbooks. So you can actually look up things like that. So sometimes it helps to look at all the different options you have for these filters, because it would open up whether or not I wanted to see certain aspects. So I don't have to search by subject and catalog number. I can search by things down below too. So I can sit there and say, I want to see all classes that meet on Monday that are in person, that start at 8 a.m. We don't have very many in-person classes that only meet that criteria, but you know, that's the idea, is that you can actually, and also I had OEE in there. Let's see if I take that out. See, and then I have one that comes back. So you guys can play around with the class search a bit and see how that works. So that's your class search, and then you have your course catalog. So this will let you see all the different courses in your catalog. So if I go, I can either do it like this. So basically, again, the student doesn't see it quite this way. You basically select the first letter of your subject area. And then once you're into that, you can click on these little things to pull up all the courses in there. And I can go into one of them and view. Ooh, I can go. See, look, I'm not authorized. That's interesting. That's a security thing. I hadn't even tried that. Let's see if I can get into one of these. But it should give you the course description, when it's typically offered, all that kind of stuff for that course. So those are the types of things that are in, like I said, this tile called Advisor Center. So I'm going to go all the way back out so I can remind you guys where we were at. I'm going to go back to my home page. If you ever do get to a different homepage, by the way, you can always get back to the, so if you're a faculty member and you also have a faculty center, you may not have all of these that I have, but you can switch between. So if I was going into my faculty center, I can get there from here. But I want to go back to Advisor Center. You don't have to go all the way back out to the portal to click to that, although usually the tab stays open. So that was all of what was under Advisor Center. So I'm going to show you guys different ways of dealing with those advisor notes. So if I want to add an advising note on one of my students as assigned to me, I'm going to go in to select one of these students, and you can see this little icon here under advising notes on the right-hand side on my student list, and I can add an advising notes to one of my students. I'm going to go ahead and do it for this one. And again, that drop-down bar at the top comes open, and you can change around. and I'm going to create a note. So the categories and subcategories you see here are going to be based on the configuration your college decided to do. So these are the different categories Highline chose. Now you can assign a note to another advisor. So if you're working on an advising team, or you are working with a student that is not typically your student, I can come in here and change this to somebody else's ID. You don't know an ID, one thing to always note in PeopleSoft is you see this little magnifying glass. If you don't know a value and it wants a specific value and you don't have a drop down, you can usually almost always click on that and I can go look up somebody and assign it to them instead of me. I can make the status open or close. So if you close it, it basically means I can't go in and add things to this note, add action items and things like that. So I'm going to leave it open right now. Advisee access. Do I want my advisee, my student, to see the note? So the student in self-service can go view their advising notes, but you can decide which ones the student sees or doesn't see. I'm going to say yes. And then I can choose a contact type. So did I meet with a student by phone? Did I meet with them in person? Is this an email? Did I email them something? It just allows you to, this is not a required field. So it just allows you to track maybe those interactions with your student and what method you had. I'm gonna say email. And then it kind of works like
Jill,
an email, you put in your subject. Yeah.
can I ask a quick question in that contact type?
Absolutely.
Is that a global list that, or is?
I am pretty sure that's a global list.
Okay. So
Not
even,
100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that's a global list.
okay. So even if a school had the ability to text outside of PeopleSoft, that's not an option in this drop down and we can't add that.
No, but I would think that would be an option they would be open to adding. I wouldn't hesitate to put that up as a possible enhancement.
Okay.
That would be that makes sense to add something like that.
And
Yeah.
it sounds to me like it's just a value change. So maybe even doesn't even have to be a full enhancement request, kind of like the travel drop down thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Adding a.
My guess it's controlled by what's on the back end called a translate value that they would just add to the list, but because it's global, it has to probably go through working group, but I don't see a huge issue with it.
Okay, Pat, we're on that.
Yeah.
Pat, yeah.
I'm
Pat,
still
Pat,
on
there
the
you go.
email thing. So Beth, you get this one.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Now, down below here, you can see you have similar tools that you would find in your email program. So you can actually attach a link and things like that. So if you wanted to send the student, so because the student could potentially see this, if I wanted them to go to highline.edu, I can make that a hyperlink and send them that as a hyperlink. If I want that to display as text, I could do that as well. So now it's a hyperlink taking them to highline.edu. Very similar to anything you use in your Word, different email programs and things like that. I can attach images, I can do all sorts of things in here. So that's just adding that note. Now it hasn't saved yet, I haven't submitted it yet. Let's say I did this, but I want to add an action item. So I want to follow up with this student in a couple of weeks. There we go. I'm going to say I'm going to follow up. So this is an incomplete item, and I want it due in 2 weeks. I can also add attachments here. So if I wanted to have something added, let's see what I come up with here. Look, my not passed UAT test. I'm going to send that to this test student. So you can actually attach a file, and this is where you can actually attach a file. And again, if I mark this as advisee access, my students can see it. I can add more than one attachment. So if I need to add additional, I can do that. And then once I'm ready to push it out there, I hit submit. And it does warn you, once you've submitted this, you can't edit what's there. You can add to what's there, but you can't edit what's there. So now I've added a note to that student. So let me go back to the My Advisees list. So let's say I was adding a note to someone that wasn't assigned to me. I'm just going to choose someone. There's always a bunch of sample people in here. These are usually do sample 4. Oops.
So we have a question. Can you add an action item to multiple students at once?
No, unfortunately, not that I'm aware of. Let me just double check that. Hold on. So when you can go into this is where you can go into the My Advising notes and you can see all the different notes you've added. Don't think I'm aware of any kind of way you can add an action item to multiple. No, and I don't see that there's any kind of opportunity there.
And then another question just popped in while we were asking that one. Is the audit tab for a degree audit?
Hold on, no. Let me go back in here.
Well, you're just full of no's right now, aren't you?
So let me add another note in here. So what the audit tab actually is, let me attach a file and then you can see it better. Look, I'll attach one of my other homework assignment things. So if you click on audit, and by the way, anytime you see this little arrow here, if I click on that, it expands it. So then I can scroll across. All that is so when I hit submit on this, if I hit that across now, you can see who added that attachment. So I can come in and update a note and add things to notes that I didn't create. So if I was, again, an advisor, and so let's say I was an advisor, but Pat was managing my students for me while I was on vacation. She could come in here and update a note and add some additional details. So if I can come in and add updates, and submit that, she could add additional action items and add attachments and submit them. And then you could come in and see. So if Pat had done this, it would show that she had added it. And then if she had added a file on this audit, you would be able to see that she added the file. So right now you can see that's my ID number, but if she had added a file, you would be able to see that as well. Yes, there is something equivalent to degree audit. And like I said, back when I was in here, unfortunately, that's not in this environment yet because our teams are still building that in production. But here under advising, under the Student Center for your advisee, that would be this academic requirements. If I run this right now, it's going to say I'm generating this academic requirements report, but it's actually going to come back and say, sorry, there's nothing there because unfortunately in this environment, we don't have that yet. But this will be there in PeopleSoft. They're called advisement reports, and it'll be based on what all your college has built for Go Live. Oh, I'm just double checking notes. Okay. And it does take it. It's trying to find the program plan, and it's not going to find it. It'll eventually come back and say, sorry, that's not available right now. But yes, you will be able to go and run that and view how your students are doing based on their academic requirements. So as you add advising notes, because obviously here I'm in a test environment and I've added a whole 3 notes. Eventually you guys will get to the point where you have a lot of notes in here. So these filters will become really helpful because you'll be able to see who all is attached to those. You can filter by it. You can see things that have action items that are pending. So you can filter your notes by that. So I could say, okay, I have these notes in open status with these are the ones that have pending action items. So it filters that based on these filters on the left-hand side, which is really kind of cool. It also allows you to do searches. So if you wanted to search for notes on specific students, you'll have your list of advisees there. Again, if you were affiliated with more, you can filter it by category. So it has some pretty cool tools in there in terms of filtering your advising.
Jill,
And then you can go in and update. Absolutely, go ahead.
A question. I'm currently actually in the UAT environment, and I'm noticing in the advisee section, it's showing anybody that I left a note for. They're not all my advisees. They're people on that search function, that filtering function.
Under the my advising notes?
Yes.
Yes, so it's gonna
just clarifying.
Under my advising notes, it's going to show anybody you've added a note to, whether they're your advisee or they're someone else's advisee. So you'll be able to go back and find that.
That filter function on the left-hand side that says advisee, really it's student. It's not your, it may or may not be your advisee.
Correct.
It's just anybody you left a note on.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Just clarifying. Thanks.
Oh yeah. Okay, you guys, so that's pretty much what I have to show you. I can go in and show more details of certain things. Let me know what questions you guys all have, or if other things you'd like to explore a little bit further.
Can you show, hi, this is Beth again, Jill. Can you show us the process for signing advisees?
Sure.
And how you like do multiple advisors?
So that's an internal page. That's not through the advising center. So when you assign an advisee to a student, you have to have access to the student advising page. So it's here under records and enrollment and student background information, and then student advisor. So I'm going to choose one of my test students. And so you can see I already have, so this would allow you to come in and add advisors or change, and it's based on effective date. So if I want to change that so if I was changing the advisor, I would come in and add a new row and say at the very top, so you can see I'm adding a row at the top. So that changes my effective date. And I want to say as of 12/1/2020, helps if I put it in correct date. Oops, what did I have before? And then if you mess up the date, because my first row is 2021. So you can't go before it unless you have what's called correct history mode, by the way. So I'm going to go back one day just so I can. So if I was changing the advisor, I would add a row at the top, put the effective date for that change, and then down here where it has the person assigned, I would change that to someone else. Let's see here. So Pat, you're getting, I don't even know if you're in the advisor table. You're not.
Of course I'm not.
If you hit look up here, it should show you anyone affiliated with your institution that is in an advisor. So you should be able to come in. I'll give it to Chantal. I think she may be on. So I have changed this to Chantal, and I would just hit save. So that's changing the advisor overall, okay? If I was adding a second advisor to this student, again, you do it typically by effective date. So I would insert a row, which is why I went a date back. Chantel's already assigned. So down here on the second level, I hit the plus down here and add. And again, you always have these lookups. And you can see the ones that are required with the little star. So if you know it's a required field, if there's a star. And then I can go look up the secondary advisor, or if I know it's me, I'm going to add my own ID. And I hit save. Now, if I go back to, I'm going to open a new window. If I go back to the advisor center and I look at this student, I should see both myself and Chantal. right there. No, we're both assigned to that student. Now you had asked also about the batch advisor assignment tool. So also under student background information, oh, it's not there. Oh, I gotta remember where it's at. Might be. You're testing me here. I have to remember where it's at. 1 second.
This is kind of a good visual into, there are a lot of things to choose from on the navigator. And so it'll take everyone a little while to kind of figure out which pieces are where they need to
And
go.
I have a lot
right?
more access than a lot of people.
And yeah, and Jill has a lot of things that most of us won't see, right? And a lot of that is controlled by security. And I have learned the hard way through testing that even though some of those things say things that make sense to us, that might not be the right way to actually accomplish what you're trying to do. So for a while too, I think we'll all be kind of referring back to the QRGs and the directions. And
so the batch advisor assignment tool. So before you can be assigned as an advisor, you have to be set up in what's called the instructor advisor table. So you'll want to identify who at your campus is maintaining who is an advisor, but it kind of lives in the same area. It's under academic advisement and then CTC custom. I don't have it in this environment. 1 second. I have other accounts. I might be able to get to. Look at this. I'll just fly this over. Okay, so batch advisor assignment. So this is running a batch. This runs a batch process in the system to assign students to a bunch of, or an advisor to a bunch of students at once. So when we run a batch for the first time, we have to give it what's called a run control ID. It's specific to the user running the batch process, by the way. So my run controls can be completely different than Pat's run controls or Beth's run controls. So I have to identify who the advisor is that's getting assigned, or I have to do this from a list down below. So if I'm running a batch just to assign to one person, I can put the advisor in here, or I have to put that in the query down below. I can run it as a report so I can see who's getting assigned before I run this, or I can actually update the student records. Do I want to add an additional advisor? So I have different options here. I can add advisors. So this would be inserting a second advisor in some student cases, or it may be adding a new one. So I can add additional or new advisor, assign only if there's no advisor. So there's different options here in terms of running this batch process to assign the advisor. Do I want it to overwrite? So I can identify those things. And then my selection tool, I either have a choice of using an external file. So we will probably at Highline use an external file when we originally assign, because we're going to pull some data from our old advising system and populate that into an external file that we load. Another way of doing it is doing through what's called PS query. So in this case, maybe we assign student groups to all of our running start students, and our running start students are advised by one specific person. I can pull a query, which is a report, to do that. Now, they give us a couple of queries already in here. It may be that these are kind of global queries that are available. So these are like our enrolled students with no advisor, or students assigned to another advisor. When I select one of these, it's going to have prompts in it. So this allows me to select some prompts to get those advisors assigned. So I can run a query and say, okay, I want this student group, for example, but those queries may have to be developed yet. But you can also preview your selection results. So if I put in my prompts here.
Jill, can I ask a question about the selection tool? Just curious, when you guys, how far back are you going to go when you upload from legacy advisors into the new system at Go Live? like, I'm just wondering how far, do we only do our current students? I mean, normally we have former students, if they return, we would give them to the same advisor they had, unless that advisor was no longer there. Have you guys thought about how far back or how many?
We've
You're
kind
gonna
of
do
started
this?
having those conversations, but I don't think we've made a final decision on what that load. I think it's going to be active students that are in our system. I don't know that we're going to go much further back than that. We're converting 6 years worth of students. So, I mean, whether or not we bring all that in, we'll have to make that
Yeah,
decision still.
exactly. Yeah, okay. I was just wondering, I'm not sure what we're gonna do either, but yeah, good to know. Thank you.
When you hit preview selection results, that'll tell you what the results are on that query. It gives you an opportunity to look and see what the results of that query are before you select that, which is nice. It also has the option of this use student select down below here. So if I chose not to use that other one up there, I can just put in ID numbers for my students and add who I want to add in one giant list. And I can look those up too if I need to. So if I don't have their new PeopleSoft ID number, I can go look it up.
Could you also use this to run a report, or maybe there'd be a different way to do it, to find out which students do not have an advisor and need one? Like
Yeah, I
just
would probably do that just in a regular query.
a different, okay.
Yeah.
Jill, what does advised by committee mean?
So you can actually have committees, advisor committees. So I haven't seen it so much in our system currently, but I mean, so let me think of colleges I've been at previously with PeopleSoft may have like admissions advisors, and they have a committee that's evaluating a specific student, and they have to go through a whole process. And so they get assigned a committee advisor as opposed to an individual person. Doesn't quite work the same way with advising center, however, because it's not assigned to an individual person.
Okay. Thanks.
Is that more like for like a doctoral?
Yeah, a
student?
lot of it's for like graduate research and things like that. So there's a lot of features in PeopleSoft that are developed around the 4-year, the colleges that have 4 years in graduate schools as well. Is there additional security role? Probably there is. I can't tell you off the top of my head which security role this page is coming from, but I could probably find out, Francis.
It's there, you guys. I found it. It's the batch. It's ZZ batch advisor.
Oh, it's that ZZ batch. I was gonna say, I'm sure there's a role for it.
I didn't know if it was additional SAC or if it was just.
There isn't any additional SACR for the batch advisor assignment. No.
Oh, cool.
Not that I'm aware of anyway.
That's business process. Like each college is going to decide who will be doing the advisor assignments. Is that the idea? Did you guys talk about that?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's going to be, I mean, you guys will have to decide how, initially how you're going to get your students assigned to advisors, and then ongoing, what does that process look like? So, I mean, we have students that will request certain advisors. So what does that look like? Those are all stuff we have to decide, finalize still on our end even.
Jill, this is Carrie again. And so I was just curious about the question that Angie posed earlier about transitional ed, like specific uses for different divisions or departments on the campus. We have our faculty that will be advising, and then we have our advising and counseling center advisors, and then we have navigators.
Sure.
And we have a different populations that we serve. And I was just thinking how cool it would be if someone with your expertise would be able to advise our advisors on how to get the best use out of this system, because we don't really have any locally developed. We would make educated guesses perhaps just by playing around with the system, but it would just be so cool. I don't know if you know of any resources that we could point our people toward. Or is it more just sort of like keep working with the system and maybe request some more of your time possibly?
Yeah, I mean, and I know that we've had some conversations. I mean, we did the one where, the different business analysts or lead SMEs from the different colleges kind of did a kind of get together on Zoom. We could do different things like that too. I mean, I would love to see more stuff like that where as we all get into the system and share, we could share, this is a cool way of doing this or that, or,
I
sharing
I
what
was going to
decisions
ask,
we
is
made.
kind of like a best practices conversation with the colleagues at the other colleges, right? And
Yeah.
and we've got what 10 colleges on the system already, so we would want to maybe learn from what they've found so far too. So that's, yeah, I wasn't sure if there was anything more specific, but that's kind of what I was thinking too, Carrie, is
Like
Because
a
we've got-
community of practice, is that what you're
yeah, that
suggesting?
sort of thing. But I mean, we don't. I know they're doing a lot of, trying to do a lot of formalized things, and there's listservs and different things through the state board, but we can take, kind of ownership and responsibility for some of that collaboration ourselves at the colleges too.
Yeah.
True. That's what I was thinking, is like sessions for, okay, advising center, tips and tricks. What are you guys doing? How are you doing that?
Yeah. Yeah. And come up with some best practices and maybe, some things that the folks in those groups
Sure.
agree that are good ideas or whatever. And then we'll have information to share with the next group of colleges that come on, right? That's kind of where my brain was going.
And
Right.
even-
And then I'm thinking about our timing, because we have, we're going live on February 8th. All of
We
the
are.
appointments.
Oh, are we?
that's news. No.
Oh my goodness. What is
and
that,
our
20 working
advisors-
days?
And our advisors will be advising, our advising day is February 16th, and so I'm thinking we'll be learning as we go a lot about, how Advisor Center works, but it would be so cool to have a little more preparation before that hits, and then sort of an ongoing sustainability plan for evolving how people can use it. I think I'm pretty sure people will learn it pretty fast. But anyway, just
Is there a current advisors? We got so many councils and commissions. Is there anything related to advising at all right now? Or is that a total start from scratch and do your own thing?
I don't think there is. I think
I
it
don't think there is either.
rolls into student services somehow.
or the faculty side of it, because a lot of colleges have a faculty model. So I kind of think it kind of depends. We're exploring. We're in a brave new world.
I was gonna maybe we create things at this point. You know what I mean? Maybe if there's a need there, and I think we're seeing that a lot through this project, where there's groups of people getting together, even back when we were doing CPWs, that don't normally get together, and they found so much value in the
Absolutely.
networking and the collaboration that they can do,
Absolutely.
and behaving more as a system. What a concept, right? So
Did you guys see
I was gonna
that?
say, yeah.
Kimberly wrote that there's an advising council.
I was pretty sure there was.
Okay.
Thanks for
Really?
speaking up.
yeah.
So who belongs to that?
Yeah.
That's a whole nother question.
A list. Yeah.
So maybe that's where we start on our campuses. Like we know who some of our advising leads are, right? We've got Chantel and Bree, and
Well, and I know that the support organization, and so when I was on the support team, we had, and I think they're still doing this, is they had, Friday topics where they would present on a topic or ask questions and things like that. So I know, at least the Campus Solutions core team did that type of thing, where they did kind of those kind of sessions. And I know that there was talk about it at that point of, there is what's called the Northwest Higher Education User Group. That is all the colleges in the area that use PeopleSoft, and they can share ideas and things like that. But we also talked, I know the state board groups has talked about multiple times about having something specific for ctcLink as well, just for our implementation of it, because we have some different challenges and things like that, because we're all on one system, to kind of share tips and tricks, and we're all we have similar programs and similar ways of doing things. So I'd love to see more of that kind of stuff, but the question is, I'm sure they haven't implemented it because they're still trying to catch up with getting everybody live and stuff before we can actually implement the more fun stuff.
donations to Jill. I think, Tim, I told Tim we were doing this, and I was saying something about how lucky we are to be able to have this collaboration opportunity just in general for all the things we've done, right? He's like, yeah, we're going to start sending bills soon.
I'm wondering if our faculty or our advisors have other, I guess I would just like to say to the Centralia faculty and advisors and any staff that are on the call, please just reach out to the local project team with your thoughts or suggestions, and we'll work that through of our college collaboration too. So.
Yeah,
Well,
we could, go ahead.
Oh, I have a question for Jill before we end here, if I could ask it, if we have time.
Absolutely, go for it.
So do we have a second to do a little role play where I could be sample student 2 and just kind of a walkthrough of what day 1 of advising might actually look like with ctcLink on your screen?
You want to see what it looks like from a student's perspective?
Well, what I'd like you to do is, go back to the gateway page and have me walk into your office or, zoom into your office and say, hey, my name's sample student 2. What do I do? You're my advisor with the big eyeballs.
Sure.
I
mean, typically when you first get in, and if the students assigned you or not, you would go into your advisor homepage. The first thing, like I said, I would typically do is go straight to the advisor center. Depending on how big of a load each of you are carrying, you may have a larger list than not, but if this student is not on your list, you can always click on the search. And so if sample student 2 is not on your list, I can go find them. Look, well, there's sample 2.
Perfect.
And so I can go in and look at their information. So now I'm looking at all of their information. They're not enrolled in classes. That's what that tells me. They don't have any holds. Looks like they do have a milestone assigned to them. I can see their contact information. I may mention to the student, hey, you might want to go online and update your email address and phone number because we don't have that on file for you. So you can help talk to them about that. You might pull, what I would typically do when 15 years ago, when I was an advisor, I would probably pull their transcript and take a look at that and see, okay, what have they done? The student may not even be a Highline student. Because nothing's coming up, that's telling me the student's not a Highline student. So that kind of tells me right there, it doesn't look like you've taken or any classes at Highline in the last 6 years. So remember, we are converting students from 6 years. So if the student may have attended prior to that 6-year window, it's a good question to ask them. Have you been a student at Highline in the last 6 years? Because if not, there is a process of rebuilding that student into PeopleSoft so we can get their record in there. But you may find their name. You may or may not find their name, but you would want to make sure their Highline record, in my case, would be rebuilt. So that would be a good thing to kind of have that conversation with the student. I can always go back to the student I was looking at here. As long as you don't change this up here, it'll stay with the student you're looking at. So I can skip through any of these tabs at that point, and it'll stay with the student I'm looking at. So this actually tells me this is actually a Tacoma student I'm looking at, and they don't actually have a Highline record. So I could come into this academics piece and I see right there, in PeopleSoft anyway, I don't have a Highline record for them. But then you have your normal conversations about, okay, well, let's get you started. What is the process at your college for getting admission or making sure that record gets rebuilt if maybe they were an older student, things like that. Does that help a little?
Yes, thank you very much.
Great. Any other questions, you guys? We have a couple minutes left. I highly recommend, I'm sure your project managers have told you, I highly recommend for those of you that are advising students to go do the Canvas course for Student Center so you can see the students' experience in PeopleSoft, because that's one of the big things is helping guide students through their experience. So this is just to give you an idea, this is their homepage. So they get all these different tiles and they can get into different things based on those tiles. And so they can get into their message center. If they have a to-do list, it comes up as a task here. The academic progress is their their degree audit or their advisement report. And so these are the different things they can interact with. And there's a lot of tiles there. And so I highly recommend doing that self-service class so that you guys get a feel for what the student's experience is when they log in.
I've heard that maybe a majority of students actually use the mobile version as opposed to the computer, this browser version. Is there a training specific to the mobile version?
So there is not necessarily. The functionality is the same. Unfortunately, I don't have a test student set up to show you guys mobile, but you can. There is a mobile, like our public mobile website is live for Highline. But when they log in, a lot of the features are the same. They may have, I'm pretty sure they have videos, and they may actually be my old videos that I recorded way back when.
They seriously are yours. I was like,
on the ctcLink reference center, there's like some mobile videos of how to use the ctcLink mobile. And so the student will be able to log in and do all that kind of stuff. I don't think I have a login right now on this because this is.
I just know it's hard to sort of help them, especially in this remote world, if we're looking at trying to walk them through it in two different environments. So
yeah, and so they will have a slightly different experience. You guys as advisors, again, you can't get into all the features to log into PeopleSoft unless you have the student profile, but download the mobile app and on your phone. It's just ctcLink app. And then at least you get to the public facing and get familiar with what's in your tiles. These are your public tiles. So click around in there to get at least start that experience. And then when they get in, they'll be able to do all the different transactions they would do in their homepage with a couple of exceptions in mobile. The one thing that doesn't work great in mobile, unfortunately, is making a payment. It pushes them back over to when they click on that, it pushes them back into the main homepage for PeopleSoft. Pushes them back over here for their financial account.
Janelle, or sorry, Jill. This is Carrie again. I was just emailing. I just had an email to Janelle that had all these links that to the mobile app that I can put in the chat. Like I can put our link that'll take to everybody's mobile app, and all you have to do is trade out your institution name.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want me to do that, or I mean, I can do that now for anyone who wants to see that.
I mean, I'll pop in. This is mobile one, which is linked to our SVL environment. So
yes.
As you guys get into that security validation type piece, you might be able to log into some of this and play with it a little bit.
Yeah, that'll take people, like I can just put in, so Centralia, I'll just put in those other codes for the colleges right now. So anybody who wants to take theirs can just grab it.
Yep. Yeah, this is what it looks like for the student. I'm actually surprised I was able to log in. But this is what it looks like for the student when they log in. So they'll be able to log in and get to all the a lot of the same stuff that they can get to in their self-service pages through the mobile app. And this is the website version of the mobile app, and it just renders slightly differently in the app itself. So it kind of squishes it so it fits on your phone. There is a way to emulate that in a web browser, but. Any other questions out there? I know we're now at 11 o'clock, so anything else at the last minute?
I would just like to thank everyone for their questions. Thank Jill for taking us on. This was a big group. We had 62 or 63 people at one point. So I hope that means we got to share lots of good information and there was a lot of learning that took place. And yes, we will get the recording and fetch out to everyone.
Thank you guys. I hope enjoy your experience getting into the new system.
Woohoo!
Jill, you're a national treasure.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
That's That's a good way to put it.
Well, Anna was calling me the Jill yesterday, you know, come on.
Yeah.
Like the Jill. Okay, take care, guys. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
See you later.